Today's date is Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. It should be noted that those in attendance are Councilperson Charmaine Wickwire, Councilperson Garrett Landit, Councilperson Judy Schlesselman, Councilperson Mitch Malcolm, City Administrator Steve Beck, Assistant City Attorney Gage Kinsler, Mayor Lyle Morrow, and City Clerk Sandy Walton. With that, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody, and we go right on to agenda item number 4, approval of the consent agenda, council minutes, and December 20th, and bills received.
I had a couple questions on the bills. The Iowa Des Moines Mission refund partial water deposit, what was that?
So they had a water account that they closed. So since they were renters, they had a $150 deposit. So some of it was applied to their final bill, and that's the balance. That was
Oh, okay, I knew that that's what we do for water deposit refunds, but I didn't recognize Iowa Des Moines Mission. Was that a business location?
No, they,
Okay.
I think it's like the Mormons have a couple of people that they.
Oh, okay.
All the time.
Oh, okay, thank you. The other question was the 34,930 for Manny's Eastern Iowa roofing for hail damage repairs. What buildings were those?
Most of the park and rec facilities.
Okay.
So they did, some work at the pool, some work at Dran Park, some work down at Franklin Park.
And the last one was the water meters for the Van Wert Company. Are these the new ones that we're looking at, or what? You had that one.
That's really good of you.
Are those the new ones that are being tested out, or what were those? Just normal replacement meters?
Inch and a
Down
half,
at the bottom,
10 gallon
Steve, there's,
flange meter.
This is Van Wert Company water meters, $2,043.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
part of Nick's
turn that
replacement.
down, sir.
I just wondered if that was part of the ones that were being tested, or.
This is 2.5 inch meters. I can't remember exactly where they were going, but I think they were to
Those
replace
would be larger.
large diameter meters.
So
I can't
probably not residential.
No, I can't remember where they were headed though.
That's fine, thanks.
Was that the new style?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
So the new
Yeah.
style.
Oh, okay.
And,
I just don't know where they ended up.
and,
Well, I think the main question, what we're asking is, since we're gonna try to transition into the IR or however they're gonna be
Mhm.
remotely read, that's
Yeah.
what these are.
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks.
IR, that internet stuff.
Any other questions or concerns? No other questions? We need a motion.
I move that we approve consent agenda, council minutes of the meeting of December 20 and bills received.
Second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. Item number 5, any resident comments out there? Okay, with that, we'll move on to item number 6. We have Kate Robertson here. from the Benton County Development Group. She's gonna talk about present overview of downtown walk around and the Catalyst grant discussion.
Got a lot. You guys all have a copy of what the state report kind of gave, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So just a quick overview, some of you may know, Charmaine, I know you're kind of new, so, the last couple of years, Benton Development Group has, enlisted the help of the Iowa Economic Development Authority to come in, and BDG pays for them to come in and do, what they call a downtown walk around. It was kind of its first of its kind last year when I said, can we knock out multiple communities in a county rather than one town at a time? So last year, they came in October as well, and we spent a few days with Blairstown, Atkins, New Home, and Vinton, and then they provide us with a report for each community. And ultimately, it's just their firsthand impression of things that the community could work on. I feel like all of our towns in Benton County kind of need a baseline. Many times we're all looking to do the same things, but it gives us a really good first impression, maybe a baseline and a starting point in each community of things to prioritize. So this year we reached out to the state again. We had them come back, and some of you participated in the walk around, but they obviously were in Belle Plaine, Shellsburg, Urbana, and Van Horn. So this is the report that they provided us. One important thing I think just to remember is, their job, they're the experts, they're the ones that read all the grants that we submit. They work in all the different 99 counties, so they see a lot of projects. So I think their input is important. Doesn't mean we have to do what they say, but I think it's important to kind of get their perspective and things that maybe we should be looking at the forefront and prioritizing. They really stress to the communities need to understand why their downtown is important. So that's really kind of where they come from. I appreciated how they put this report together this year. They kind of split it into 4 different themes for Belle Plaine specifically. Obviously, the state has spent a lot of time here over the years being the Main Street Iowa community, things like that. So we really had to break it all down and say, let's just focus on these areas. And I think the group that kind of met with the state leaders really provided a lot of good insight as to some of the priorities, which the first theme that they kind of talk about in this report is the streetscape. Obviously the underperforming biocells, which I know has been a painful topic for quite some time. The Pocket Park, when they were here, it was nothing but weeds. They talked a lot about that. And then another thing that they really thought was missing from our downtown was amenities, like whether it be a little bistro table or something outside of a restaurant or there's all kinds of different fun things we could do, but benches, seating, those types of things. So I believe that community development is working on the biocell thing. So I think that is at everybody's forefront. So I'm not going to stress on that too much, but the park, I don't know what the plans are for that going forward. I know initially I was a part of helping get all those plants into that park. We worked with Benton County Conservation. They helped us figure out what would be good low maintenance type of plants. I think we put 1,000 plugs in there, which was like all native plants, basically, like wildflowers and things like that. And I just, the maintenance part of it, I think, is the problem for the Pocket Park. So hopefully going forward, we can kind of prioritize who's going to be kind of in charge of that. I don't know if community development is working on the park part too, Judy, or?
Well, it's been mentioned and we haven't really gotten off, too far into that because we just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, it's
Well, let's
huge.
face it, it is a park.
right,
And children go there,
right.
so they don't always respect plants like adults do.
Yeah. I agree.
So perhaps something could take its place.
Yeah. Yeah, whether it be mulched in or rocked, or I know Gerondo did have some really beautiful like rose bushes in the back that are kind of self-maintaining, and those are nice back there. And I think there's a tree in there now too. I haven't walked the park for a while, but anyway, so I'm not going to stress too much on the streetscape part of it, but I do think it was important to note some of the amenities that we could maybe potentially look at in the future for the downtown as far as the benches go or outdoor seating outside of
one of the restaurants or something like that. It just might be something neat. The other important part in there too, and I think we talked about it during that meet and greet with the state, was they really stressed working with our partnerships. And I think that there's multiple ways we could work with the school on that. Maybe the FFA program, or those kids could help with the Silver Cord hours, things like that. I know we've worked in that capacity in other things as well with the school, but that might be something we might want to explore down the road too, just to see what we could do. Let's see, next page. Oh, they always bring their great architect with them, and he always does really neat drawings for certain things. This one was just specifically for the biocells. I know everybody expressed their stressed and expressed their frustrations with the bump outs and those things, but they didn't really have any great feedback for that part. The second theme was the downtown buildings. I can say that the state leaders are super excited about the progress that we have made as far as the new businesses and some of the buildings being fixed up and things like that. However, they do feel that we still have a lot of eyesores, and that sometimes overrides the perception, right? Just because the perception just trumps the reality, basically. So they want us to just continue moving in the right direction and really show that the downtown isn't quote unquote in a decline. So I think, again, maybe doing some of the streetscape things would then play into this, and we just need to continue working on the downtown building stuff. One thing that they do reference like multiple times is the downtown design guide that the state has, and this is something I can get everybody a copy of. Sandy printed this one, but I do have hard copies of this. One thing that's in here that I think it's in the back of the report as well. They talked about the city potentially looking at ordinances to adopt, and I know we've talked about this. I've talked about it multiple different times. Like a vacant building registry. It's something that we could look at from a city perspective to have a vacant building registry. Basically, you'd have to figure out all the legalities of it, but essentially, if there's a vacant building, they have to register, maybe pay a fee. 6 months later, if it's still vacant, it might require the fire marshal or somebody to go in and inspect it. I mean, if one of those buildings that was empty caught on fire, it could take out our whole downtown, just as an example. So just continuing to have them work on, it would help us know who owns it, how we could get people in there, but it will also help maybe entice them to want to get somebody in it. There's all kinds of different things, but the vacant building registry is really something that the state has pushed in the last few years as a part to really try to keep the downtowns enhanced. So I would encourage you guys to, I can get you copies, like I said, but really take a peek at this downtown design guide that they provide, because there's some really good information in here. Most important thing, I think, in this report is the upper story housing portion. It's no joke, no lie. We all know we have a housing shortage. Every town in our county has a housing shortage, but we have some very untapped opportunities still in our downtown. We are making moves with, the new upper story units going in, but we still have a lot of opportunity there. So my opinion is that the housing, whether it be upper story or just in town, is what we need to really prioritize going forward in 24, and figuring out a way to try to get some more of those building owners to want to fix up their downtown, and really that would help enhance some of our buildings as well. Let's see. We just need to understand our current inventory, prioritize housing as our economic development tool. Maybe we might want to work with our employers a little bit, whether it be Frontier or Iowa Mold or whomever, that housing can really be an incentive to try to get good employees into the community as well. And then I think it's also important to just continue to reiterate that whether we like it or not, change is upon us. I think when Highway 30 is done, we are going to see a move of people moving this direction. and where are we gonna put them? So we really need to make sure that we're ahead of the game on that a little bit. What else? There's a lot of info in here. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then their final theme was volunteerism. And if you've volunteered or been a part of community development or any other organization, we know that this is a big struggle for all things. So they had some really good volunteerism type ideas to pass along, which I will pass along with the community development folks as well. But just continue to keep our volunteers engaged is really kind of the theme with that. So the next page is one of the architect drawings. This happens to be the Moore building, and that's the theater. And then this was, they really thought it would be neat to expand that area into a green space area that's in between the two. There's just a fence, I guess.
And it was, at one point, it was even a little putt-putt golf.
I think you told us
Yeah,
that, and they
yeah.
were super pumped about that.
Yeah.
So they thought that that would be a really cool opportunity to increase and enhance some
Who owns
downtown.
that lot?
So that's technically, it's part of the King Theater property.
It is, okay.
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
Mansfield.
So Zach Lane would own that.
Yeah.
But he and Brian Bach, I mean, maybe those are your two owners, maybe they could work on something together, or that could be even maybe some outdoor seating for the future of either of those things that's going on there. So something cool to look at. I have passed that along to both of those gentlemen as just development ideas. So, again, it's just kind of giving in the back pages, it's just common resources that the state makes available or suggests, and that's given to all the communities. Nothing super crazy in here. Let me see what else. Yeah, I did attach, they do reference the derelict building grant program through the DNR a couple times within the report. So I did attach kind of the one-pager fact sheet on that just for your reading. They referenced the Keep Iowa Beautiful funding opportunities. There really is just the one, the derelict building is part of that Keep Iowa Beautiful via the DNR. Then the Paint Iowa Beautiful is also part of that, and that is just basically applying for paint to fix buildings up. There is an additional grant that Keep Iowa Beautiful has, but it's more, it's with the Iowa Grocers Association, believe it or not, and it has to do with plastic bags, and it's for recycled materials. And I did pass that along to April in the Parks Department because it would be more suitable for recreational equipment, more or less. So, and then I did attach the Center for Rural Revitalization, their kind of little fact sheet on some of their funding mechanisms that they have currently. There's the innovation grant, there's the scale up grant, and then the rural enrichment, I can't even talk, grants. Those are, application times are a little different on those, and you just have to have some really unique projects that kind of fit into those. But the state does have a real big push on rural Iowa, whether it's housing or things like that. One thing that they do have, I know Shellsburg took advantage of this, is they have the rural housing assessment grants, which that's something we could apply for to kind of get a new housing study completed in our community. But I think we kind of know the answer to it, so I don't know if it's something we really want to put a ton of time into unless we wanted current data. Rural child care study grant, again, and we could get up to 10,000 for that, but we do know there's a lot of studies that have happened throughout the area that we could just kind of pull data from on that as well. And then they do have a rural leadership boot camp grant, and that's for training and mentorship and things like that. So anyway, that's kind of the scoop on the report. So I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything about that specifically.
I think the walk around was really beneficial. I think it's good to have outside people come in and take a look at what we look at every day
Yeah.
with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
they see some of the same things that we see and they see things that we don't see.
Exactly.
And there has been, I think, a decline generally since the streetscape project was done.
Mhm.
And it's sad to see what's happening. It'd be nice if we could stop that before it gets worse.
Mhm. And again, in this downtown design guide, there are some things in here that you would think are very like, why would they even be telling you to do this? Just like what your cornices should look like, or windows should look like, or what paint color schemes you should utilize. So there's some things in this particular thing that might be really beneficial to look at just from a council perspective to determine if, you know, you want to make some of these guidelines a priority, just as we do continue to hopefully fill those buildings and continue to work on them so that everything looks.
I mean, I hate to say this, but that sounds like a much more focused design for a small town than what Main Street, Iowa was ever offering, isn't it?
This is Main
Is that
Street,
kind of Main
Iowa.
Street, Iowa?
This is Main Street,
It's so
Iowa.
sad that they lost that focus on small towns. Because I really think they have lost that, or they've moved away from.
I'm gonna say yes and no. I'm gonna play Switzerland on this one, Mitch. I agree with you to an extent. I think in some respects, we maybe weren't utilizing them to their fullest capacity as well for what they could do for our small town.
Yeah.
But I do think as some of the recent communities that have been brought into Main Street, they are of greater size than Belle Plaine.
It's just, it seems the requirements were cost prohibitive for a lot of small towns to fit their mandate.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And
it's nice
we-
that we have that
Yeah.
because I think there's a lot of things that we can definitely focus on.
I agree,
Because we can't do it all. You have to pick
piece by piece.
the thing that's going to be the most effective and
Mhm.
get that done. But I agree with you. I think, you know, there's some paint chips on Main Street and some of the sidewalk and stuff that has to be kind of looked at.
This even nails it down, even to like if there happens to be any new construction or anything like that, but there also is it's almost like a maintenance schedule for the older buildings as far as, you know, things you should be looking at from a seasonal perspective, whether it's your brick and mortar and things like that, what you should really be focused on what time of the year. So it's super great information and it might be something that you might want to look at. And I will continue to push the vacant building registry in every town because I think it's extremely important and it would just be an enhancement. I think it would help Sandy, it would help me, it would help Steve just to even know who owns some of those buildings and what their plans are.
Steve, do we have a pretty good sense on everybody that owns what building on Main Street?
We can see who owns what, but we don't know what they are going to do with what they have. And what Kate's saying is this would give us some extra tools in our toolkit. You know, for example, we have Hardig Drug, which is a fantastic downtown business, and they have, you know, possibility for 10 plus upper story living opportunities up there that they have yet to take advantage of because, you know, I talked to the owner of Hardig and the owner of the building and, you know, there's a missed opportunity there. But, you know, some of the things like with their security,
I can see as a
So-
pharmacy, a certain part
Yeah,
of it, there would be some.
absolutely.
but there are, you know, other
There's a-
opportunities
There's a
around.
gentleman that owns a building, it's just an example. There's a gentleman that owns a building. He bought it to be like a hobby fixer upper building downtown. He lives in West Union. He's from California. He lives in West Union. He's going to fix it up at his leisure. We can't get a key to get in it. We couldn't even show it if we wanted to. But if we had a vacant building registry and he had to pay a fee every 6 months or 12 months, whatever that may be, to keep his building registered and up to date, up to code, all of those things, it might push them to want to put something in it or, you know.
What this
a little
would
bit
do,
better.
I think, is when we did the streetscape project, we had, if people remember correctly, a number of buildings with the ceiling in the basement with, you know, they had
Mhm.
collapsed
Right.
inward. And we just don't want that to ever happen again.
Mhm.
And, there are tools out there, and Kate's been looking around to try to help us figure out how to save the buildings, because once one goes, it's a domino
You bet.
effect.
Yep, makes sense.
And even if a building isn't heated for a year,
Mm.
the problems that causes for that building, and then the buildings that share walls with them.
You know, and we could also run into a situation that we're completely unaware of, that it's a storage unit of some sort, you know, that maybe we're not visibly seeing from a lower level. I mean, then you have all of that stuff in there. My brain always immediately goes to fire. If something were to happen, that would take half our downtown out potentially. You know, we have a good fire department, but you never know, you know? So anyway, I just think it's important. I think it would be a good tool to try to continue to fix up our downtown buildings.
Okay, do you know, if there are any other communities in Benton County that have the vacant building registry? Because I know like Marshalltown, I've done a little bit of research on it.
Yeah,
But I didn't know if there was anything around here you're aware of.
not in Benton County,
Okay.
none at this point, but not that they're all kind of starting to look at it. I know that it's a conversation we've had in Vinton as well. You know, they've got quite a few buildings, and they've already been down that road with a fire taking out half their block. So I do think it's important, but at least from a registry standpoint as well, even if there wasn't fees associated, it would really provide that information, especially contact information for out of town people. And maybe if we had them on our radar, they'd know that we're on their radar as well. So
Yeah.
might push to get them filled a little bit easier. So
Did you say they had a sample code they'd provide?
they do have, there are some sample codes out there, and I know Cedar Falls, obviously much larger than us, but that is one community that kind of spearheaded all of that going forward, like
So
a few years ago.
Marshalltown, I was doing some research and some work with the city of Warrenville on this exact thing a couple months ago. So there are communities out there that have codes we could adopt or, you know, base it off of.
That was my suggestion in Marengo too, just
Yeah.
FYI. So. Awesome. Any other questions?
It's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no,
Thanks, Kate.
Okay,
perfect. All
Would you
right.
guys like a copy of that?
They all should have a copy, I believe. Oh, this.
Of that one,
This,
yeah.
yeah. I can get everybody a copy of this. That's,
Can you just email it?
yeah, it's digital.
Yeah,
Okay,
would
I
be
can
great.
just email it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This one's Sandy's. I'll get this back to you.
Save a few trees.
Yeah. So, okay.
Well, thank you,
Thanks,
Kate.
Kate.
Did you,
Thanks, Kate.
were you gonna talk about catalyst?
You're welcome. Now you want me to do part B?
Right.
If you want,
Okay. I
since
will.
you're on there.
All right, so it is that time of year again for Catalyst grant cycle. The pre-application is due January 29th, midnight, I believe. And then, if invited to apply after the pre-application, the full application, I believe, would be due April timeframe, then they would award in June. So, for you, Charmaine, you haven't been through this process with us. The Catalyst grant is a grant that the state offers. It's for $100,000 for essentially for a catalyst project in the community. So they usually award lots and lots of them. I think they awarded 33 the last time.
what
So,
would be an example of a project?
so an example of a project, not in Belle Plaine, I've got a few, in Atkins, the brewery in Atkins would be a project that was a catalyst project. Cranky Hank's Pizza in Shellsburg is a catalyst project. Belle Plaine actually had a catalyst grant awarded on the Moore Building in 2021, but due to multiple transactions of new building, we had switched 3 owners in that time frame, and then the scope of the project all changed at that time. We actually just recently, Belle Plaine withdrew from that catalyst project. So Vinton, let's see, what did we do in Vinton? There's a lot of different projects. Typically, it's a downtown building of some sort. An ideal project would have a component of potentially upper story housing in it, and a lower level with a secured tenant. Something that's going to enhance the building, enhance the enhance your block, whatever it is. So something that would just actually be a catalyst for us.
And the city's responsible for that grant or the owner?
So the city is the applicant. It's kind of a crazy process, but the owner says, I'm interested in applying for the Catalyst grant. The city becomes the applicant, but the owner pays for the project. However, the city has to have skin in the game in the project as well.
Okay.
So it's really becomes a partnership. So anyway, with that being said, we have 2 potential projects for Catalyst. At one point, I thought we had 4. And this now becomes you guys' decision on which project you'd rather apply for and support. The first project is the King Theater. They are interested in applying for the Catalyst, specifically for their storefront restoration, the theater screen and stage restoration, the lobby restoration, and the historic sign registration. That's kind of their phase 1. And that's about a $285,000 project for phase 1. And that's planned to take place in 2024 when the work would be done. The other caveat to this grant, Charmaine, just so you know, you cannot start any construction. You can tear out, but nothing that would be affixed anything into the building until you're awarded the money. So nobody would really be able to start the work until June, probably when it's awarded. So, and then the theater's phase 2 is planned for 25, but maybe 24, depending on funding mechanisms. And then that would be the 4 apartments for the upper story restoration. So ultimately, it's the lower level of the King Theater with a project costing about $285,000 is project 1. Project 2 is the Moore Building, which we did have, like I said, we did have a Catalyst grant on. Jason Jasnos applied for that, if you remember, back in 2021 for the Little House of Pies. Then Zach Lane purchased that building, didn't do anything with it. Then Brian Bach, my developer who I've worked with on 3 other projects, he came in and bought the building. At that time, that's when the CDBG DR grant was available. So we applied for that for the upper story housing. So he was awarded, it's just shy of 500,000, isn't it? It's like 485, I think.
I'm gonna say 475.
Something like that. Monies for that upper story housing. But during that whole process, we knew that the state money might not play well with the federal money, being that the state money was awarded before the federal. So all of those things happened. We were out of time on that grant as well. So was it about 2 months ago, I think you received an email?
Yeah, something like that. The funding just wouldn't play well with the other funding, so
So
they encourage us to reapply.
yeah, so we withdrew, Steve sent in a letter, Lyle, I think you signed it too, sent in a letter, they withdrew from that Catalyst grant. So basically gave that money back to the state. And so now we're just in a new cycle. He is interested in applying for that for the lower level specifically. So the project would change a little bit in compared to what it was the first time. But it would be for a $275,000 project, and that's for one side kitchen and to-go area, and the other side is kind of seating and entertainment. And we do have a secured tenant on that lower level, or a letter of intent, I should say. So that's that project. Again, city has to be in the game. So I guess where I'm at is it's up to you guys to decide which project you want to push forward with, and then we need to decide what's acceptable as far as city contribution.
New Girl Processing, what was the second, where was the second Catalyst? First one was King Theater and
the second one's right next door to it, the Moore Building. It is, it's the current building that has all the construction happening on the upper stories. Formerly Grandma Putz's
yeah, okay.
sewing fabric shop, thank you.
Trying Trying to keep going.
RSVP in our era.
There you go, Mitch, I got it.
When you say skin in the game, is there a percentage average?
I always like to start high. I like to start high and then work backwards. I like to see a city come in at 10-15% of what the total budget is. We don't always get there, but that's right. 10% I think is a good spot to shoot for.
Is this limited to cash or cash, I guess, funding the project, or is like in-kind donations?
In kind, you can have both. I mean, you definitely have to have some actual hard cash in it, but you can have some in kind. If you would like me to refresh your memory, in 2021, I have the resolution from 2021. When we were awarded for that project, the total project cost on that was $202,500, and that's when they were going to do the 5 apartments and the lower level. And the city's contribution was $22,750, and that was utilizing $9,000 for interior and exterior grants. It was $2,500 estimated for the sidewalk railing, because where that railing is on the entrance of that building is kind of funky. So that was something that we looked at. There was an estimated at the time $6,000 estimated tax abatement on the building. Belle Plaine Community Development committed $5,000 for a welcome grant. We were going to look at, installation of 5 water meters and remote touchpads provided by the city. 3 years removal of snow on sidewalk during snow emergency declarations. Reasonable in-kind assistance during renovations, such as adding gravel to the rear parking areas as needed. I think that was kind of all the different things. So that's kind of what that grant looked like in 2021.
Makes sense. Okay.
So that's kind of where we were. And do you guys even want to do a project this year? Maybe you don't. I'm just throwing it out there, but we do have 2 potentials, so.
Well, I have a question. Work is being done currently on both of these buildings and probably the demo part. Okay, so what happens to these buildings and the progress of the work if they are not awarded this? It just stops?
Until June, and then they would have to, if we don't get the money, then they can continue on with what they want to do, but you can't. I mean, what she said is they can demo, but they can't build.
So we got 6 months to sit.
We're used to it. The hearing was 10 years.
But I think
So I can speak to
We're
the
patient.
I can speak to the Moore building. I mean, they have been, the minute they were able to go to town on the CDBG funding for the upper story portion, they have been working night and day on that building. Those apartments it's approximate that those are going to be done in May, and that grant will be closed out at that point. So then there's really just a short period. So they can continue their work on that portion of it. The lower level, they haven't touched. It's just demoed. So, and then as far as the theater goes, I don't know that any work, maybe you can speak to that better, Steve. I'm not sure, but I don't believe any work has happened other than just cleaning things out trash wise. So, but I don't anticipate any work happening on that project. Obviously that project, nothing will happen on that until June for sure.
It just seems if you've got one where we've already committed $500,000, and now if you had 100,000, now you've got a finished building.
And it was one that had the money in the beginning.
Right. I mean, that just to me seems kind of the common sense. I mean, I'm just speaking out loud here, but
I think they're both great projects.
Yeah, I do
mean, you
too,
can't go
right.
wrong, and I think you can't go wrong. It's you guys' decision, so I don't want to give.
We have an opportunity to do both.
Get one.
You can only, you can only apply for, the city can only apply for one project per year.
Okay.
So we could apply for the other project next year or whatever project it would be. We could be applying for a catalyst grant every year. So,
You can't split grants?
no.
Oh, come on.
No, I know. I'm agreeing with you on that one. but-
I do know that phase 2 for,
How about sport?
phase 2 for the theater with that upper story, if we put it all together, we're looking at over $500,000 project on the theater, down the road as well.
Is that 2 apartments upstairs
For-
in the theater?
Could the theater work backwards like the Moore building is?
There's
Could he-
potential. I
Could he
mean,
do the upper story this year while we go for the Moore building, and then next year he could flip down?
there's potential. That particular CDBG DR grant, the DR stands for disaster recovery. So that was funds that was made available due to the derecho actually for housing stock. So there's potential that something could come up. The state could come out with an upper story.
There was DR funding for COVID, there was DR funding for derecho, so.
Maybe we'll
I
get
mean,
one
I'd
for
really
the
like to
Hales
see
Farm
the
or
theater. I mean, I don't know if that's a deal killer to where the theater wouldn't be able to be open, but it's really a missing thing for downtown is to not have that theater open.
Oh, I don't disagree. The theaters are anchor tenant, in my opinion. It will eventually be one of the biggest, probably, and best projects on our main street. And it brings people to our community, but
Are you sure we can't split it?
I'm positive.
Definitely a tough spot. That's 2 good ones.
It is 2 good ones. I don't want to say too much because I have an opinion, but
Well, you guys have to think about, the community and
It's not how hard are
Well,
these
where-
grants to
where
write. I
we
mean,
can
they have
go,
to be written,
I
this
guess.
has to be written by January 29th.
the pre-application does. I'll be honest with you, I front load all of them because then it doesn't require much work on the
Okay.
and Gage has been down this road with me and other communities as well. I like to get everything done as much as possible in that first bulk of things. So then it's just a little bit of tweaking in the April timeframe. So we would need to know what our city commitment is.
Without this grant, will it prohibit either one of them from moving forward at all?
I can only speak to, I think they'll both move forward.
Okay.
I'm more confident in one over the other though at this
understand.
moment. Just timing wise.
That's really a very hard thing to figure out.
This is something that will have to go on a future agenda. Am I correct on that?
Yes, I'm slated for your next council meeting, on that agenda. And that would be to have, kind of basically have 100% your commitment, kind of what your funding would look like, from a city perspective on that. I, however, am not going to be able to be here that day, so I would just have everything loaded up and ready to go for you guys, and you would have to decide at that point. But I can't move forward unless I know which project you guys want to move forward with.
We have to make a decision if we want to support either project.
Correct.
Which is hard for me because I'm not understanding our budget fully yet, obviously.
Absolutely. Mhm. I understand.
One of the things that to consider about the city's hard money in it is with that package that Kate and I put together for the original Catalyst, it was money that was already assigned for grants. We just had asked for a double grant in interior and exterior. So it didn't really hit our bottom line as hard because it's funding that's already set aside for grants. Now,
That's exactly what I was getting at.
so we aren't going to have to scramble around, and some of it's in kind and some of it, you know, for instance, what you mentioned with the front approach, that was, you know, those were estimates. So we were going to have about $3,000 to $5,000 of hard money in a project, in money that we would have to try to come up with from a funding source.
So
That wasn't-
you're saying that we have the capability without hurting our bottom line and anything else to participate in this, one of these grants for one of these.
Yes, and we want to support them very well
Yep.
so that the state takes notice of our buy-in on a project.
Okay.
So, but one of the things that we, just so you know, in some of the projects that haven't gotten catalyst grants, other projects that you've seen happen only qualified for one grant per year in interior or exterior. And this had a special project where it would, funding where it would get 2 grants. So that's
From the city.
from the city business incentive grant program.
Okay.
Whereas normally the city has historically just said you get $4,500 a calendar year or in a 12-month period. This was a special deal because it's an additional funding source and we had to have skin in the game to do it. So that's the only real divergence of what we would normally do. Is that accurate, Kate?
Yeah.
I apologize to the rest of you.
No,
No, don't,
I'm
because-
glad you're being
I have
thorough.
to get
Don't-
on board.
Don't ever assume we remember.
And so something else, when we talk about in kind, those are estimates, you know, so some of the things we would offer anyway, but they have a value assigned to them and we can put that down as a, you know, it has a real value to it, but it's not hard money out of our pocket.
Understand.
Okay, do you need a decision tonight as far as which project?
Of which project I do in order to move forward, to be able to make sure that I have all the estimates and then can show them to you guys so that you can make a sound decision on what we're gonna do from a financial, contribution, so.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is, let's say we go with one over the other. Which one is gonna have a better immediate impact as far as getting the money, getting a project done and getting open? I mean, is that a wrong thought or is that kind of, I'm looking kind of at efficiency. So is the King Theater not gonna be able to open if we don't do this, or is it gonna be open and just not get remodeled and we can do that next year? Or is the Moore Building, that business not gonna be able to open? Is that not gonna get done if we don't give the money? And now we've lost a business, or now we're delaying a business from getting in Main Street.
And we're talking about the Moore building, we're talking about the upstairs only. Right?
No, this
No,
this
this
would
would
be
be
the
This would be
downstairs
for the
with a
lower
new,
level.
with a new business that hasn't been announced that's gonna go in there.
That's what
That she
it's
said,
involving for
the
me
letter
to
of
grasp,
intent has
because-
been signed for this new business, but the question is this new business then not going to be able to open?
So does everyone know what this new business is?
No,
No,
none of you do.
that's
None
why,
of us
that's
know.
why,
I know.
right.
I know.
All right.
And that's my question is, as a matter of efficiency, we do this grant, is the King Theater not gonna be able to open and be functional, or is it just gonna be open as it was and can still open? And then we can do a grant next year and then it can remodel.
I
Or
get
does
that.
the new business then not open? Do we run a risk of losing it because they don't have the grant or the funding and they're requiring this funding to get open?
Mhm.
So that's the $1 million question.
The other thing to that though is you would have a building that's completely done, meaning the Moore Building, this year. And to that, he purchased that building with that Catalyst grant already awarded. but with all the delays, to no fault of his own, lost it because of another grant. So.
Right.
Do you take away from an investor that already purchased a building, knowing that there was $100,000 there, lost it because of no fault of his own, and say, okay, well, the city's washing our hands of you. Thanks for coming to Belle Plaine.
Mhm. I get that.
I mean, the King Theater is important. That's great that we have an investor for it, but
But it can
Look-
move forward in the state that it's in.
I'm guessing because it was open before, so unless something catastrophic's happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they just had a
Oh,
movie in
kids
there,
mhm.
so.
Well, that's why I kind of asked, could they move forward with their upper story? Why we do the catalyst this year for the building that already had it, then next year flip it and get the King Theater, the catalyst to get the lower done and get them going.
There's some good points here, guys.
Mhm.
There is, and again, I have a lot to get on board with, so anything that anybody can say legally, got my ears open.
I am in favor of supporting a building that already had the catalyst and moving forward with them. Because they bought the building with intent of that money was there for them. Not discrediting the King Theater, but looking as an investor coming in, how would your relationship
I guess,
be with that community? How would you?
I mean, the King Theater to me, Steve, is functional now as it is, correct?
We had the kids movie there.
Yeah, that's good.
I would say it's in as good of condition as it was the last time it ran a film. There hasn't been any substantial, there's been some stabilization.
And he can still move forward upstairs.
If he wanted to do that right, yeah, if there's grant money and able to do that. I'm kind of leaning what Garrett has said, honestly. But it's a no-win. I mean, it's a
Very
win-win
tough.
and a no-win. I mean, it's great that we've got, and I hate to discredit someone for coming to town and spending the amount of money that, Zach has spent in improving, and I don't want to discredit and make it feel like we're not welcome. We're not thankful for what he's doing.
As a businessman, I can't imagine he would think that.
I don't think so. And certainly it should be the next one on our radar after that. But I think what Garrett has makes a lot, to me, makes a lot of sense, because that building then would have the ability of being complete.
And the Catalyst grant isn't the only grant out there. There's historic preservation. There's all kinds of things we could be looking.
And boy, the King Theater sure would fit that one really
Right.
well.
The catalyst is just the one we have to get.
This is just the
Ironed
one
out
that's
right.
open right now.
Yeah.
So
I would have a tendency to agree with Garrett too.
Makes sense to me. I wish we could do both.
Oh, I know. It would be,
We can't.
that would be
but-
awesome, but
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, you guys, a year goes by fast.
Yes.
I mean, there's this opportunity is annual.
yeah.
Right.
So, it's your guys' decision, and
yeah, and we might not get awarded for either of them this cycle. I mean, we just don't
Right.
know,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
But I think that they're both strong. They would both be a strong application.
And what we offered last time, we could offer that pretty much again as far as numbers.
With the exception of the water meters, like that.
The only real hard money we had committed to it was changing the front, because there's a 2-step elevation change. There's the curb and then there's a step, and then there's railing there. And the railing right now is directly in front of how you would get into the building.
Mhm.
So they had requested that we adulterate that entrance so that you don't have to try to go through the cattle chute to try to get around it.
Right.
So, from a financial standpoint, I feel like we're solid. I don't have any concerns about it at all, as long as the council agrees to support the grant in doing the double, the 9,000. And then I would just say whatever one, because these two are very important and they are both catalyst projects, that if something, whatever one we pick this year, that the next year, that one would have, the runner-up would have first choice and not have to go through the whole
Okay.
thing again.
Right.
Kate said there are other grant options.
Mhm.
Are there any grant options that we could provide to the other party?
I've sent an entire list over.
Yeah, I think there are some options.
Just,
Yeah.
yeah, just so that they know that they're important to us too, whichever one that might be.
And I understand what you're saying, Steve, but from my perspective, again, I thought we were going to have 4 potential catalyst projects opportunities this year, which is a great problem to have. But 2 of those projects were just not quite ready. Like they said, we're gonna hold off and see what happens and maybe next year we'll apply. So I don't know that you can necessarily earmark who it's gonna be because things change a lot, right? I get what you're saying.
You mean we don't want to say, well, we'll do the next one the next year, because too many things can happen.
Yeah,
That's just what it sounds like is being said, and I wanted to make sure that,
No, I don't think we can say that.
yeah, so I sort of make sure that council's clear on it.
That's why I
at one
thought-
point when I thought we were going to have 4, I had suggested that as a council, as a city, that we put together almost like an RFP process and like put the word out that, hey, it's catalyst grant time. If you have a project that you're interested in the city supporting, please submit your project to us, just not to the extent of what we submit to the state, but an overview, costs, those types of things, so that we could make a real informed, sound decision from a city's perspective. But
That's why my question is there a grant available to support the other party?
there may be one that he would be eligible for potentially.
I mean, even if it wasn't gigantic, it would be just something,
Mhm.
and trust me, I know the grant process, I've
Yeah,
been through a lot
I
of them.
know.
It's work. But we want to be welcoming to both of these
Mhm. Mhm.
parties.
I think for this, we've got this one figured out, and then we'll have to cross the bridge as we get moving on with anybody else that comes down the road. But
Can we do some research on something that we might offer the other party? in Grant form,
I think Kate said that she had sent a list of grants that they may qualify for already.
right, which would go through Steve, this is what is that correct?
Kate and I work together on grants.
Yeah.
So it would just be, what's the city prepared? The biggest thing about grants is what's the city buy-in,
9 times out of 10, the city is always the applicant for the state grant. So I pretend I'm the city of Belle-Plaine and write the
Okay.
grants, but then you guys have to have some type of contribution 9 times out of 10.
I see.
So,
I think pretty much,
We
Mr.
can
Mayor, I
talk
think
about
we've
that.
agreed as far as the council that we go with the Moore building. You okay?
I am fine with that.
so I'll work with you, Steve, over the next week or so, and we'll try to maybe put together 2 or 3 different potential financial possibilities of what you guys could do. And then, like I said, I unfortunately cannot be here on the 17th. But I'll just have it all ready to
Sandy,
go.
that's part of our budget talk is over how much money we're allocating into that, correct? Into earmarking for grants for
Grants.
future
Oh,
catalyst
yes,
grants.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that'll get a better understanding.
So if I just have that all ready to go, one of you guys can handle figuring that out, and then we can go from there.
Mhm.
Draft resolution,
Okay,
kind of like we did.
okay. Perfect.
Merci.
Thank you for all your work
You
on
bet.
all of it.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I just monopolized the whole
So-
hour of your time.
So we don't need no motion or no, we're just giving you direction. Is that-
Just give me direction.
You'll have a chance to vote on stuff next time.
I'm ready to go.
I do also want to mention that, I was a little concerned that they wanted us to withdraw because the state money didn't play well with the federal awarded in that order, state and federal. I have made multiple reach outs to the state just to confirm that we can go federal state, as far as the funding goes. But if something else, I would find out something else between now and then. We have something to fall back on, so.
The other thing that I found out too is if the money would have been spent, we would have probably been excluded from the DR funding.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a blessing in disguise that no catalyst dollars did get spent because we would have lost out on the DR opportunity
Tell me what
completely.
DR is.
The DR was
Disaster
a lot
recovery.
bigger.
Which was a
Community
lot
Development
more
Block
money, Steve?
Grant, disaster
Pardon?
recovery.
Which was a lot
That's
more
what it
money?
was.
Yeah, that was the one that for
Oh
475.
my gosh.
So if we would have spent down that
So
grant,
hindsight, it was
Hinds-
awesome that the grant actually never even transferred from owner 1 to owner 3, and it never transferred from owner 2 to 1 to 2.
it's hard to write a letter to the state that says we're withdrawing from the grant, but when you would have had to give up $475,000 to get 100, that doesn't even math. So-
Doesn't even matter.
Wow.
So,
Thanks
But
for-
we had no choice but to withdraw.
cool.
Thanks for your
Well,
patience.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'll get to work on this and we'll get it figured out. I'm gonna have a whole bunch of stuff for you to sign.
Thank you.
He
But-
loves signing his name.
Does he? Do we need to get him a stamp? All right.
Get your pen ready.
Anything else?
Thank you, Kate.
I'm out of here. Have a good
See
day.
ya. Bye, Kate.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your contribution in that. On to number 7, possible motion to approve the Hometown Current as the official newspaper of the city of Belle Plaine for 2024. I think that's kind of our only, for the most part, our only option.
Did,
So-
what did happen to the, I can't remember the name of the Star Press Union. Didn't that get purchased by the Gazette?
They bought them both,
What is,
These
Bob,
two
what
papers
both?
were owned by the same company.
both papers.
what is the hometown current?
It's a newspaper.
I know, I've never.
It's out of Marengo, I think, right?
It basically covers like from here south,
Okay,
as opposed to the Star Press Union is kind of like here north.
okay.
So it had like, Ringo, Victor, English Valley.
Daily,
North English.
weekly,
Same schedule.
weekly?
And for what it's worth, it is currently our official newspaper and has been for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So
What
it's a
about the
companion to
county
like
that
the,
goes to everybody. Is
That's-
that not considered a newspaper?
That was a shopper. Yeah, it's a shopper.
That doesn't count, huh?
so do you get the
Okay, they don't
hometown,
publish that.
hometown marketplace as a companion to the hometown current? So if you
Okay.
get that,
Their shopper.
yeah, it's their shopper.
We had to have an official newspaper and publish legal notices and the shopper doesn't have that section of all the very fine print.
Yes,
So that's why we have to adopt an official newspaper.
It does, but they only
I
buy.
get all that. What I didn't get was the actual newspaper part. I,
Now you know.
now I know.
Pretty simple. Well, with that, I need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the Hometown Current as the official newspaper.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0 passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 8, approve the reappointment of Bruce Gapster to the Airport Commission. We do need a motion on this as well. Okay. Yep, I spoke with Bruce. He is willing to do another 3 years. So, and it was up, I think, the 24th of January. Does that sound right?
Oh, no, just January of 24.
January of 24, so
It's up this month.
of this month. So,
I move to reappoint Bruce Gapster to the Airport Commission.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. Too fast for it.
You're doing fine.
Item number 9, approve the reappointment of Andy Dahlquist to the Historic Preservation Board.
And we promise we're meeting really soon. Haven't met for a long, long time. so,
Really?
No, I talked to him this last month, and so he and Jackie and I are gonna meet down at the Mexican restaurant, have an
Oh,
official
sure.
meeting.
Oh, boy. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I spoke to Andy and he was honored to do it again. So,
Good.
so his exact words, if you want me to, I would be honored to.
It's great.
So. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Andy Dahlquist to the Historic Preservation Board.
Second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This is 4-0. Okay, moving on to item 9, discuss the possible approval renewal of a Class C retail alcohol license with Sunday sales and outdoor services for El Catrain Mexican Cuisine at 1009 7th Avenue in Belle Plaine. We had any problems, Chris?
Chief said it's good.
No, there's no.
Just their patio's really nice in the summer.
Haven't tried that.
Oh, it is nice.
It is nice.
It's really nice.
I move to approve Class C retail alcohol license with Sunday sales and outdoor service for El Catrain.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. Agenda item number 11, discuss the possible approval renewal for a Class B retail alcohol license with Sunday sales for Dolgen LLC, DBA Dollar General, number 6648 at 405 13th Street in Belle Plaine. Probably no problems down there either, Chris?
A motion for approval,
You go.
renewal of Class B retail alcohol license, Sunday sales for Dollar General, 405 13th Street, Belle Plaine.
We have a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. 4-0. And then item number 12, discuss for possible approval renewal of a Class C retail alcohol license with Sunday sales for Jennings Bradshaw American Legion Post number 39 at 1008 12th Street in Belle Plaine. Chief,
Good to go.
you have a motion?
You go, Charmaine.
I so move. Class C retail alcohol license for Jennings Bradshaw American Legion.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. Okay, on to number 13, discuss for possible approval of a utility credit of $376.20 at 902 7th Avenue due to a water softener stuck in cycle mode. Any questions, concerns?
Yes. How long have we been doing this? It's a one-time thing per
Per household,
household.
per household.
How many years has this been?
I
I mean-
honestly don't know.
Can we have any kind of estimate? It's always been,
At least 4 years, because we've done it since I've been on.
And then
Okay.
6 years since I've been on.
Mhm.
all right.
At least 9 years, because it's been since I started.
4, 6, 9, Judy,
I think
go.
it was in place when I came on 10 years ago, so there we go.
Yeah.
And it's only on the sewer side, it's not on the water side, and it's one time forever per household, so they can never do it again. They have a
But the amount
one-time
is
shot.
what it is, and the city has to be responsible for that, correct?
Ashley calculates it out as it's a percentage, correct, Sandy? It's a percentage, not the full amount.
It's.
But this
What's
is,
in excess of what would be normal for them.
Yeah,
right, exactly. It's the error amount.
the extra, yeah.
Yeah,
Of just the sewer
Right.
side.
I have empathy for these people that had a problem, but it is their problem and it is their responsibility. I'm wondering if we can discuss this in the future, unless nobody agrees with me at all, but perhaps we could do a percentage of it, or perhaps we could offer them the opportunity to make payments on their bill, divide it out
They're already
over a
getting
certain
it.
amount of time. They already have that option.
Yeah.
I don't feel we should be responsible for the whole amount. Now, if we have, from what I understand, it's not an ordinance, it's a what, it says that we do this thing. So tonight it would have to either be a yes or a no, correct? And certainly I have nothing personal against these people. I know these people, and again, my empathy is there. But where's this money come from? Our budget, where does it, where do we pay it from?
We're not paying them, we're just not collecting.
Yeah.
But the
revenue.
water still got used.
Water's
They're-
being paid for.
No, it's on the sewer side. So in other words, they have to pay, so they're paying for the water. The amount of water that ran through their meter, they have to pay for. But there's the water side and then there's the sewer side.
Okay.
So this ran through our sewer system.
Mhm.
So there's a cost obviously to that, but what we're given, we're making them pay for the water side.
Mhm.
But on the secondary side, then we're giving them a break. And it's a one-time break forever. So if someone went on vacation and forgot to turn their water off and had a major leak, then the city has had it to where we've allocated this one-time break. That's why the clerks, a lot of times, if it's only $78, they're gonna say, you maybe wanna pay this one because if you have a serious one in the future, you've used your one time up. And I get what you're saying,
Mhm.
but I think it's more of us trying to work with people who had an issue or a problem and resolved it.
I asked the same thing when I was on the council, and I think Steve explained it best is there is a cost of running water through our sewer, but it's
Right.
clean water. So Steve, can you elaborate back to what you told me when you explained it to me?
I don't recall exactly what I said, but so when you pump, I'll just tell you exactly how it works, and then you can just go from with that. So if you flush your toilet and it uses 1.5 gallons of water, the 1.5 gallons of water had to been pumped out of the ground. It goes to the water tower, and then it goes to your toilet. And when your toilet flushes, the 1.5 gallons goes to the sewer plant. For every gallon of water, every gallon you pump at the water at the well field, you have to pump it 3 times to get it through the sewer plant. So you have to, it's not gravity, so you have to pump it to lift it, and you have to pump it and pump it. So you have to pump it 3 times to get through the sewer plant, but it is clear water. So it still has to go through all the processes. But it does have to be pumped 3 additional times to get through the sewer plant.
The reality of it is there's still a cost to the city.
I think in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not, correct me if I'm wrong, but for a leak this size, it's probably negligible, isn't it? Or,
But we're not limiting it to a leak this size.
no, I mean, I don't know how much it would actually cost to process that amount of water.
Did I answer your question at all, or your
Only to
question?
the degree that it still costs something.
Yeah, it costs something. I'm not comfortable telling what y'all need to do for policy because it's been in practice for a
Now,
long time, but
correct
it
me if
does
I'm wrong,
cost us.
50% of the sewer costs, not 100% of the sewer. Is that right?
It's 100% of the excess.
Excess
sewer.
sewer.
Right.
So
They're still
if,
paying their normal.
Right.
if you normally use 3,000 gallons a month, you're still gonna pay for 3,000
Right.
gallons of sewer, because that's what you normally use in your normal process. Didn't have anything to do with your leak.
Right.
From what I remember, the way it started out, and it was 10, 12 years ago, I wasn't on the council at the time, but when it made more sense was if someone turned your spigot on the side of your house and ran 10,000 gallons out onto your ground, nothing went through the sewer. So most of the time, when you run 1,000 gallons of water in your house, it goes down the drain and you pay equal amount. I mean, you pay, if you use 1,000 gallons of water, you pay for 1,000 gallons of sewer, 2,000 gallons of water, 2,000 gallons of sewer. So I think the first iterations of that were when someone had a leak and it didn't go down the sewer, and then they forgave the sewer. And then it kind of morphed into forgiving the sewer, even if it potentially went down the sewer. We just didn't know.
But
There were
if it
arguments
didn't-
about-
If it didn't go down the sewer, there's no cost,
Correct.
but there is a cost.
If it went down the sewer, there's a cost. You're right, there's a cost. If water goes into the sewer plant, there's a cost to the city.
So who pays that? Where does that money come from? Is it
The sewer fund.
the sewer fund? And the sewer fund is from all the people that pay their sewer bill, right? But again, I have empathy for the people. Is this only for, problems that they can determine are inside the house?
It has to be something that went through your meter,
Right,
so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
because we've
Unless
had
it's a hose.
outside spigots were left on, hoses were
But it
left
has to
on.
be something that
A
came
pipe
through the
leaked
meter.
in the crawl space in the basement, nothing went through the sewer, that's initial.
That was it. Yeah, there was a crawl space
But they
scenario.
can prove that.
Yeah.
And then there was no cost to the city. But when this happens, there is a cost to the city. And I understand what you're talking about, Gage. This isn't an extremely large amount of money, but, for these people, it is. I still struggle with it. And I know it's been policy for a really long time. But if we give them an opportunity to pay it, divide it up into however many months it takes them to pay it, at least it gets paid.
Well, it's certainly something that we could go back and look at again. And maybe even if we wanted to talk about, if you can prove that it did not go down the sewer, then we might forgive it. If it was a pipe in the basement and the crawl space and the spigot outside.
Outside spigot.
Yeah.
If it did not go, if that water did not go down the sewer and we can verify that, then that might be a reason to excuse. But yeah, we could certainly go back and look at this again if we wanted to.
I know people struggle, and
We can redraft something.
I have, again,
Because I'm
I
pretty
keep
sure
using
there's
that word
something in writing.
empathy because I do have empathy for them.
There is. There's something.
But it is their responsibility nevertheless. And I just,
Well, we'll have Sandy, we're gonna look for the original write-up.
Yeah,
I'd like to see that, because I've always just assumed that that's how it was written up, and it wasn't, and that's a great question.
We'll have Sandy pull that out and then we'll get it discussed.
so now here we are at the beginning of the year, and if we approve these two people, I mean, at what point in time is it fair to change the policy? They're already on the agenda, so you're gonna have to move forward with that.
Well, I think that that's our prerogative, is that people are allowed to come before us and tell us if they think we're right or wrong. But I think if we determine that the original intent of this rule was exactly what we heard, and this is kind of morphed into something it should be, then we have the right to correct that.
Well, and even under correction, you can say, I mean, I know this is January and New Year, but we can say, okay, as of July 1st, we will no longer honor these, or however we want to word it. So, I mean, you can.
Or an investigation by the water department as to where the leak was and whether or not it was inside or outside the house and didn't go through the system.
Okay.
So we'll have Sandy pull that.
But these two lucky people.
Okay. So do I have a motion to item number 13?
I make a motion to approve a utility credit of $376.20 at 902 7th Avenue.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-1. Okay, number 14, discuss for possible approval of utility credit of $225.72 at 1707 8th Avenue due to a basement toilet leaking. Any discussion on this one? If there's no discussion, I need a motion.
I'll motion for approval of utility credit of $225.72 at 1707 8th Avenue.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-1. Okay, number 15 would be Steve, the city administrator's report, project update.
Okay, all right. I will try to go through this quickly. Stop me if you have any questions. The well field is holding steady. And I have not been able to secure any more water deliveries. The people that I had been working with at Homeland Security, who had been working through Fairway, put me in touch with Fairway, and they were very generous to us for two whole months, and they delivered a lot of water to us. The person that I had been working with was moved to a different department, and he gave me the new contact person, and they said they were going to decline to make any more free water deliveries to us. So I have not been able to figure out anything else with that, and I don't know if that is going to be an option going forward.
Has anyone complained?
We made it through the holidays, and we've had people stopping in and calling and stuff for water, but I don't know we've had any complaints. I think that's something that the community really appreciated. And it was my understanding more that it was going to be a long-term relationship, but I understand, if you send a semi-load of water to somebody, it's probably between $5,000 and $10,000. That's probably the value that that had on it per load. And I don't think that's something that we could afford to do out of pocket.
Did the public take all of the water that had been here? Or they didn't come and pick it up, did they? It was all distributed. The public took the
Fairway
water.
didn't take any back.
They didn't.
No, they just said, we're
Yeah.
sorry, we can't give you any more.
Okay, because
and
last
that's-
time I was in, there was a lot of water here, and then all of a sudden there's none, and I wondered if they took it. So,
No, nothing like that. It was just, there was a lot of people in here, a lot of foot traffic for the holidays, and, I just want to say again, thank you to Fairway for what they did give us. And if anybody has any questions about things they can do, I'm still taking calls every day and in the evenings and going to people's houses and trying to help them figure out something if they are struggling. And our well field's holding steady. I don't feel that we have enough buffer in reserve to flush mains enough to make the intermittent problems go away in every neighborhood. What it really needs, the entire system needs flushed out from stem to stern one way and then the other. Because normally we would, if we weren't in a drought situation and we were in what used to be the old normal, we would flush it twice a year. We have not been able to do that. So that's what's contributing to the discoloration problems in select neighborhoods and intermittent problems other places. Mark Vitosh, the state forester, visited today to go over our Main Street tree project, which was mentioned in our downtown assessment about the state recognized that we needed to be doing something more with those trees. So he came down and talked about that and wanted to know what our comprehensive plan was and gave some good guidance on that. And then I talked with him about strategizing how to spend the tree grant money that we're going to be getting this year and what the best bang for our buck would be. And he gave me a lot of resources. It was a good conversation. I always appreciate him coming out here. We only have a few of guys like him in the state, and he always makes time for us. The community center has had some bad luck. I don't know how else to put it. So I've been helping them with various projects. They got a new water softener. They're getting a new dishwashing, sanitizing machine.
Isn't that ridiculously expensive?
Yeah, so they've asked me to help with procurement on some of those things because I had some experience with that. So we're gonna, the freezer is having problems. The dishwasher, sanitizers, it's all the same age, pretty much. And the stove had some problems, and what kind of initiated it is the stove repair cost almost $900, something like that, wasn't it, Sandy? And then Wayne kind of came and talked to me. He's like, hey, can you help us with trying to figure out? So we've been working together. We got a water softener put in that's big enough for the whole building. So that will protect all the equipment throughout the entire building, all the fixtures, and really be another huge step forward in that being a viable shelter all year round, no matter what's going on. The sanitizer, I think we're going to save about, depending on which one they go with, $3,000 to $8,000. The softener we saved $3,000-4,000 on. The freezer we're going to save another $3,000 to $6,000 depending on what model they go with. So it's really, and they are fortunate enough that the unfortunate hailstorm that happened took out their roof, so they got a new roof, so they don't have to spend. That was going to wipe out their budget, their building reserve, if they would have had to do that. So I've spent a lot of time working with them, trying to save them some money and keep that up and going, and for the folks that go there every day.
You say they're going to save $3,000 to $8,000. How, depending on the model they go with, how are they going to say? I guess, how are they saving $3,000 to $8,000 on each unit that's being talked about?
So a supplier that they had that I can't really get into was giving them pricing that was different than the pricing that they now have.
From a different person, so they weren't.
So
they weren't checking different places.
I jumped in when I jumped in. They had not procured anything other than they were having some problems with the stove. So I'm not criticizing their money management things. I'm just saying I had some pretty good connections with people that I've bought commercial equipment from previously. And it's all new and it's under warranty and all that stuff. But
Can we make that like standard protocol? I guess is if you're going to spend money, you should at least have a couple of quotes, not just go with, well, this is our source and we're going to go with them. And if it's $10,000, it's $10,000.
yeah, and that's,
Because we own the community center, correct?
yes.
Is the volunteer program there anymore? They utilize that building at all?
Yes, there are several programs that work there.
Okay, then can anyone approach United Way?
I believe that's Wayne is working on that, getting match from other sources. So the point was, if people have been seeing me down there, I've been spending a lot of time down there because I'm trying to help them through that, because they're all volunteers and it's a lot of work and it's hard to try to wrangle all this stuff. And if you don't have familiarity with what the difference between a reach-in freeze, 3-bay freezer and a 2-bay reach-in, with a top mount compressor, it's very hard to compare apples to apples if someone isn't giving you that type of a thing. So
Wayne's trying to find some matching funds.
yes, that's my understanding. So he's doing everything he's supposed to be doing. He just asked for help on some of this other stuff
We have
because
a contract with them, so I'm not sure that they're obligated based on the contract we have.
No, there may not be any obligation, but as a volunteer organization supports the city. I'm just throwing that out there because I know about that.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know exactly who he's been working with, but he's working on that on his end. And I'm just trying to get the stuff here economically and get it moved in and moved out. And
And do we have a committee?
They have a board.
they have a
It's
board.
gonna be a long board meeting, guys. Do they have a board? And so what Garrett is suggesting should come from that board, correct?
Yes, I mean they should have had multiple quotes.
They
Yes.
never started with the quote. They just asked me to help. So I took care of the
Do
procurement.
we oversee the board?
No.
I would say it's similar.
They're responsible financially managing the money.
So similar to like the
Okay, so they-
library.
Yeah.
X amount, and then they have to work within that budget. Okay,
So they didn't do anything wrong. They
No,
just
I'm not
asked for
insinuating
help.
that They did.
Yeah. I just didn't, sometimes when I explain things, I'm trying to be brief. I didn't want to make it sound like I was throwing them under the bus because they sincerely asked me for help.
Well, I'm glad they did.
Mhm.
It's really good.
Yes, I approve of that 100%. That's. yeah,
So
that's
I
the-
work with that. I work because they're autonomous. I just talk with their board or board members and then they relay it back and then we make the decisions
Mhm.
and I make recommendations and then they do their own independent board meeting stuff.
But
So
when they go negative, what happens?
they historically have,
Won't be in your lifetime.
they
How do you?
historically,
Manage the money.
All right.
they do,
Sandy.
they do well with their funds. They just asked me for help because it was out of their wheelhouse. If I could rephrase it.
Okay.
They do very well with their money.
They do
I guess that was
They do
a-
often get multiple bids. My guess is the first bid they have is the one that they reach out to Steve. and
Because
say,
when
"Who
mom
else
was
can we
on the
get this
board,
from?"
she and her mom actually worked together on getting furniture. And that
Yeah.
poor person who had to go through that bidding process.
Yeah, I remember.
that Garland furniture lady took them to town.
And again, when I ask some of these questions, it's not only directed to the fact that we own the community center, but it could be the library. Or it could be anybody that we give a budget to. I'm just trying to learn, guys.
Yeah, no, that's
Good
great.
questions.
if I just make sure that if I don't answer your question, just say, you didn't answer my question. Sometimes I get off in the weeds a little bit.
Now, anybody knows me knows I'm gonna
Well, you're welcome.
ask. So, no problem.
You're welcome to ask. Tomorrow, Amy Bauska with Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship is going to have a meeting with Nate Cass and I regarding the Water Quality Initiative grant through IDOLS. We've been selected, our application was approved, so we're in the pre-approval process. We've been invited to apply for the grant. So that's the $250,000 Water Quality Initiative grant that we'll be hopefully receiving this spring. So it's kind of like Kate said, there's a lot of front loading and heavy lifting in the front to do the pre-application to get your narrative and get all your stuff and all these things. Then you get accepted into the grant program, then you have to polish it and then get the award. So it's very exciting and reassuring that we've been accepted, that our pre-application was accepted. And we're meeting with the administrator of the grant, one of the administrators of the grant tomorrow, to go through and have any kind of question and answer session that we need to bolster our app. She said we had a fantastic application and it fits right into their program with the Water Quality Initiative. And we just need to tighten the screws up and elaborate on a few things, and Nate's going to help with that. After that, I'll be meeting with the Watershed Management Authority to strategize what we're going to do with our next steps with the planning grant that the Watershed Management Authority received from the DNR. And I'll be meeting with them in Tama tomorrow. So that's exciting and all good things. Oh, I glossed over one. I am working on the pre-application for the application to get into Tree City USA again. That being accepted into Tree City USA opens us up for recognition as a Tree City community, but also opens us up for grant opportunities and kind of puts us at a higher priority if and when tree grants become available to us. And it's one of the reasons we've been very successful with our tree grant program.
Do we have to apply for that annually?
Yeah, every year. So we have to prove to them that we're investing in maintenance and new trees. And we didn't plant any new trees last year because of the drought, but we still performed tree maintenance. We performed trimming, removal, stump removal, things like that. So those all count, and we have to show that we've spent so many dollars per capita to qualify for that. And it's just a level of accountability that holds us accountable to make sure that we're doing right by our community and by the trees. It's kind of like a minimum standard, but it's a good minimum standard. I have had a high level of interest in the house at 1507 6th Avenue. That's the former Carlson property. It's on the curve there. That is a house that would be very difficult to tear down because of the close proximity to the neighbors. So we have very high interest in somebody wanting to buy that. A contractor wants to buy that and fix it up and turn that into a livable home again. And they've been through it. I've asked them to put together a proposal to give to the city council for your consideration. I don't really know exactly how to proceed with it. We haven't been down this road yet, have we, Gage?
Have
So
they seen the report that was done by our inspector?
yes, and
And
they're
they're,
not concerned with the amount of money
Do we
that they
legally have to put that up for auction?
Yeah, any disposal of real estate will have to be sold at public auctions. And the only thing I would say that is kind of going off this is that we've had this discussion in other communities I represent. As soon as we give up, even, I know nothing about this contractor, but even the best of intentions, once we sell it, we lose control to do anything. And if something happened to the contractor or the company and fell through, we'd be back at square one. So, that's something to discuss.
We just have to do our due diligence and have them give us,
Plans and,
Timeline.
well, how can we hold them to,
right, once it's sold, we're back.
Well, if we had a development agreement, how would that?
That may be a possibility. I have not explored that option.
Because
nuisance properties.
I'm a little nervous about that because the house to the south of that, in that block, we had an investor come in and they gave a very good presentation. And I understand they were busy with other places and they're farmers, but that has not been touched for several months.
I talked to those folks. They said that one should be done by the end of February.
I don't know how the door's wide open on it and siding laying all over, so I don't know how that's possible.
But one of the.
But I just wanted to give you feedback on that.
One of the things that, again, council's free to do whatever they want policy-wise, but from a legal perspective, now that the city is holding the cards, what one way I envision it legally, the easiest way is to city tear down, return to whatever condition they return to, then that's the minimum bid for public auction and going from there. Just because it eliminates the nuisance, which was the whole point of acquiring title to begin with. But again, policy-wise, the council's free to make the decision that they want. And then, if we want to explore like a development agreement or something, we can look at it at that point. But Steve and I, we haven't touched base yet on this, so.
Yeah, this is something that got ran at my flagpole today, so.
I mean, that's a positive thing, and that's great. And I think if we do due diligence, if these people have a case history that we can look at, then, I mean, that's a really good thing, but I understand what you're saying too, as far as.
It's just something I wanted to share with you all, so you could be marinating on that a little bit, and because it isn't an emergency, it's something that we can.
Because we all know how quick the courts work as far as getting title.
Right.
So we won't end up back in square one after receiving title.
I do know that in talking with Jay, although this house isn't as large as the church that we had to remove, the proximity to the buildings is even tighter. So
How have you looked at that report? I mean, was it
It's
just a matter of trash, or was it a matter of foundation collapse?
it had,
That,
there's
the back is collapsing.
I went, it's a heavy lift.
It's been rained, the upstairs has been rained in for at least 3 years. I mean,
So
you're
it's,
talking mold and you,
could be a
you tear into it and the studs are probably even compromised at this point.
Haven't had any water service in, I'm gonna say 90.
I shut the water off when I worked with the water
I
guy.
didn't say, there was no water service when I started here.
I shut the water off in 2012, I think.
It makes you really suspect, right?
Mhm.
Again, I haven't been at this for as long as I've been on council, but I don't know if there's been any community I've been involved with where we acquired title and then we turned the property over without reducing it to vacant lot, just from a best practices perspective.
Okay.
All right.
So that's food for thought.
We'll see.
I was asked to pass that along.
I'd be interested to know what this contractor thinks he'd have in it versus starting from scratch and putting a slab house somewhere. Because you can put a slab house up for a decent cost if you're a contractor versus rehabbing an entire house that is derelict like this one is. I mean, yes, it sucks to lose a house, but if they can put up a better ranch style house, a ranch is better than that
So
two-story
it kind of
house.
leads into another topic that I wanted to broach with the council, and I don't want to belabor this, I just wanted to introduce it, is I believe this house is on a non-code, I don't think it's a code conforming lot. And we have a lot of non-code conforming lots around town. I actually just bought a house that's on a non-code conforming lot.
What does that mean?
It's a property that's under 10,000 square feet. So what has happened is some areas, you know, you have a 10,000 square foot lot and they cut it in half, which is the circumstances where I just bought. So I have a 6,000 square foot. I'm just using me as an example because I know that a house can fit on it. And the one behind me is 4,000 square foot. And the one across the street, it's the same thing. So in certain areas of town, we've taken down houses that, and if we were to remove this one, if Gage, would you mind looking that up? 1507, 6th
It's a
Ave.
non-conforming lot.
I'm pretty sure it's a non-conforming. So for certain people, they would really enjoy having a large yard or a minimum standard yard, and other people would enjoy having a yard that they could mow in 5 or 10 minutes and not have a gigantic yard. Or, you know, in certain areas, you know, where the duplexes are going up on 13th Avenue, you share a yard with your neighbor, you share a roof, you share, you know, condos, for example. We could, if we were curious to investigate the possibility of having some areas where you could have a non-code conforming lot or change the code without having to go through zoning and everything.
Well, that's something that we as a city need to do anyways, because there's a lot of codes building wise that need to be addressed.
So it would, one of the things that we can do as a community is improve our population density. So instead of, you know, if we tear down a house and it's a non-code conforming lot, we can't build a house back on it.
That's something we need to change though.
Yeah, that's something we would need to change the language in. And this isn't something that I'm trying to push my agenda on. It's just something I'd like us to think about, because we have areas all over town that have non-conforming lots with residences on them. And they, you know, some people don't want to have a half of an acre or a quarter of an acre to mow. And some people would love to mow 10, but you know, I've been hearing from some of our aging population folks, they really like the idea of having a duplex or a condo or something like that with a small yard that they could either mow themselves, or, you know, it would, the yard is smaller, so there's less upkeep. You know, if they had to pay a kid to come mow it, it's $10 instead of 50 or something like that.
What's the address of the property?
1507 6th Ave, 1507 6th. That's just something I wanted to talk about, because we have, you know, a lot of the town is R2, which means you can have two residences on one lot. And
Yeah, it's 5,800 square feet.
yeah, so the best we could do with, if we tore down that house, is just sell it to a neighbor for them to maybe build a garage, maybe. And that doesn't solve our housing problem. So, you know, it's just something I'd like the council to think about.
Well, I think that's why we do, if we did tear that house down, no matter what, we need to have a conversation, whoever that is, with the building codes in this town anyways, because they are outdated. I mean, everything across the board, the way you can build a garage, the way you can build a house. I think we should look at like Atkins, places like that that are exploding and some of the things that they have in their language.
I think that's prudent because a lot of towns just keep growing out and out, and we have a lot of empty space inside of our town to get that density back up so that there are, houses on every street. And, that saves money in the long run for a number of reasons with, utilities and roads.
Both have
And
their purpose, and it probably is time.
they just need to make sense in our era
Right, in our time, yeah, things have changed.
without having
This
to
is
go
part of
through,
our whole discussion of moving the community forward
right.
and making it attractive to people who want to come here.
So you have options. Yeah, I think that's all I'm asking for consideration on. Otherwise, it's if I tear this, I don't want to keep going. If I tear this house down and I buy it, then I have to go and do zoning and, Board of Adjustment. And, historically, the Board of Adjustment have been very, have weighed favorably on developmental things, but it's still a step that you have to go through every time. And if we had something that was more uniform, we wouldn't have to go to our volunteer base all the time and say, is this something that we should do or not?
Could you research what some other communities have done in this area and kind of bring back to us what some of the options are?
Yeah, sure. I think, and that's another topic about like tiny homes and things like that. Some people are building 300, 400, 500 square foot houses. As long as they're permanent structures, I think those are great. Some tiny houses are just trailers that you pull in and out, and that's a different thing. If you have a permanent structure, and again, Gage and I haven't talked about any of this, so I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. It's just conversations that are, I think, after we have the council filled out, or whenever the council thinks it's appropriate to weigh in on those things. Gage, you have time this week to talk about that, maybe some ideas, and okay, maybe come up with a sample. All right.
Friday morning.
Okay. Let's touch base tomorrow. If that works for you.
Anytime after 2.
All right, wonderful. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thanks.
One thing I was thinking about too is with Fairway with the water, I think it'd be nice of us and even, to send Fairway a card or something, a thank you card for doing that.
And I asked everybody involved, I was like, how can we just say thank you? And it's almost like they didn't want it to be well known. So I don't know, but I just never got the information back to how, without just sending to info@fairwaystores.com,
Is this Fairway corporate or is this Fairway a store?
corporate.
Okay.
We've been working with corporate.
Where's their,
Well, there's a way we could.
Their warehouse was Boone,
Letter.
where this water came out of was Boone.
Got it.
But I think their corporate might be in Ankeny. I just can't remember for sure.
Can't remember either.
They're a totally Iowa-based company to my knowledge.
Right.
Their corporate should know how much we appreciated it.
Yeah,
It's
I would.
taken for granted.
Short letter or something with the card. I mean, we really should.
You've got a bunch of thank yous in your desk, by the way.
Practice signing your name.
Thanks for the report, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay.
Your newsletter was good too, by the way.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yes,
I glad you brought that up because I was gonna comment on that as well. Where you put in the plan, I actually had several people, say, that's all we wanna see.
Right.
That is what
Yes.
people wanted to know, and also is that we can't just do what we want. That what you did well was you had an explanation on all this has to get approved by DNR. And that is a painfully slow process.
And the funding sources.
Right, so I think that that's critical for people to understand that, believe me, if we had a magic wand that could fix that tomorrow, we would.
Absolutely.
And there just is a process that we have to go through, and,
People will accept that.
well, we
If
just,
they know it, if they know.
anybody who's ever had to do anything like this, this is just a pain in the rear, but you have to go through the process.
Right. And I know that the council had asked me to do kind of weekly updates. I'll do my best. When I talk with Nate, there is not a lot of substantive change
Right.
week by week.
Right.
I'm very happy to do that. I just don't want to burn out the audience by, well, nothing happened this
Same
week, or
thing.
so I didn't know if you all would still like me to do my monthly articles or just as things come in.
I would
or
do monthly and just,
Weekly's
I
kind
think
of a
maybe
lot.
you might have to
Yeah.
just resend.
once
out
we
that
get going,
newsletter.
it'll be
Yeah.
weekly.
Yeah,
Is this where I get to ask what we're gonna do with our email addresses?
Sure.
Sure. Just for professionalism in general, I would really like to see us all have the same email, with the exception of maybe cwickwire at, gland at.
Excuse me. So we have a webmail server that runs through our website. So bellplainiowa.gov.
Mhm.
So we could have council members having their own email through our domain.
You do that, but it's not free,
It's not free. It's a couple bucks a
you
month.
know, unlike Gmail.
Which is true. It could be Gmail. I don't have any problem with that. I still think it should be consistent.
Gage, do you have any guidance on that?
The only thing I'd say is I would not use personal email or phones for city council person business, because it's all, if you use your phone to text, or your personal email to email the city, it's all subject to open records.
Okay, so there, right there is one good reason for us to get on board all together, which broaches another subject, which I don't know how necessary it is because I haven't been on long enough, but telephones could be in our future. Just saying.
I think it'd be prudent for every city council person to have a separate city council Gmail account or what have you.
I think Dave Fish did, didn't he? Wasn't it Mayor
Mayor,
Fish?
2012 at
2012.
Gmail. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was his. What Gage is saying is you don't want to mix business and pleasure, or if you had some kind of an encumbrance, it could now all be subject to.
But there is a complaint, there is a concern in the community that people cannot get a hold of the city council members. Well, I really don't want to talk to them on my personal telephone either, for legal reasons and other reasons. So it may be time to look into investing in telephones for the city council.
But
That
talking
might-
to them on the phone
Mhm.
isn't, I mean, there's no record of it. It's not
Oh,
like
right,
it's
it's
something,
not like it's, yeah.
texting would be an issue.
Well, yeah, so how often do we do that? All the time, you know?
Well, as far as contact, I would encourage every contact, let me rephrase that. If there's a member of the community that wants to get a hold of a city council person, they certainly would be able to send them an email. I know we've had people email the city before, and those emails should be listed on our website.
It's required.
almost all the time someone's doing a personal message through Facebook.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
I'd say 90% of the time I'm talking to anybody, it's a personal message through Facebook.
How do you feel about that?
That doesn't bother me at all.
However, when someone messages me on Facebook, my personal Steve Beck, I say, because I don't check that very often, I say, please call City Hall, email or whatever, and we have to go through that way. That's how I do business. So I don't respond back because I just don't want to be on Facebook all day long trying to, manage that stuff. And I just,
And I would say that, I mean, actually, the US Supreme Court's reviewing this right now as far as whether or not your Facebook is is it subject to First Amendment? Is it a public space, or is it your private individual as an individual citizen? So the more you can actually go through those official channels of your official Gmail account or having conversations in person, the better.
I mean, I don't know if any of us get contacted enough to warrant having telephones. I don't know, because I haven't been on long enough, but I really don't want to talk to people online.
Well, I think this is a discussion for another time.
work session maybe. I'm happy to
Yeah,
accommodate whatever we decide.
This could go on all night long, and we got a long night ahead of us, so, No, it's not on the agenda, and I think we better shut it down, so.
yeah, okay, good.
So.
We'll just pick it up again when y'all
Yeah, and
are
we-
ready to
we-
pick
we
it up
can-
again.
I mean, I'm happy to get it on the agenda and start making a plan,
Excellent.
but we better not, because it's not on the agenda, so. So anything else then, Steve?
No,
Okay, any questions for him? On this topic? Okay.
Thank you.
thanks for the feedback on everything. I appreciate that.
Okay, on to number 16, the mayor's report. I did not have any meetings yet. I do believe I have a emergency management one coming up, so I'll know more on that later. And then also, with Mary now being gone, I have to appoint a pro tem. And my choice on that is Mr. Garrett Landit. I have asked him and talked with him to basically sit by my side and be my backup. So Garrett will start that position immediately. So. And other than that, I really don't have anything else because I haven't had any meetings or anything. So I got stuff coming up, but not right now. Correspondence, we have none. Old business, we have none. Resident comments out there?
Jeez, chief, you made it a long time. What in the world?
Sorry.
Okay, with that, we're gonna, number 20, we're gonna consider a motion to go into a closed session to discuss selection of Ward 1 candidate for appointment, Iowa Code 21.511. A governmental body may hold a closed session only by affirmative public vote, and either 2/3 of the members of the body or all of the members present at the meeting. The governmental body may hold a closed session only to extent a closed session for necessary of any of the following reasons: to evaluate the professionalism, competency of a individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered, when necessary to prevent needless and irritable injury to that individual's reputation and that individual's request at a closed session.
Could we have a break before we go into closed session or take
I-
a vote to go?
I-
To go in first? Vote to go in closed session first?
Yeah.
So, okay, so, and we have to do this,
Well,
no,
No.
we can do it just as a,
Well, I'm saying before we go into closed session, because closed session that be reported separately, right? Would it be prudent, I guess, to table or to do it now, the recess, or I can't remember how we,
I guess
otherwise,
you can.
otherwise that recorder's gonna have to run the entire
Oh, okay.
time. So I would just take a 5-10
Break.
minute break. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we'll take a 5-minute break?
Would you like me
Yes.
to, you want me to leave this running or turn it off?
I'll probably turn it off for now.
Okay. All right.
Should we adjourn?
Go.
No.